Very welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and we're back alongside Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. And brilliant weekend of football coming up, but in particular, obviously, the big one at 4 p.m. on Sunday, Liverpool versus Manchester City, which is where we'll focus first. But those listening or watching on the podcast, if you take 2 seconds, head over to our YouTube and hit that like button. It'd be much appreciated. It's all we ask for, and it helps our content get out to a wider audience. Insights.matchbook.com. Full recap of all the guys' bets will be available from Thursday afternoon. And the Matchbook Betting Exchange would invariably be best price in the odds checker grid on every single bet we cover here. But also you can, of course, take advantage of our Bet Builder product as well, getting all the advantages of the sportsbook. But of course, you also have that betting exchange pricing and more on our £10 podcast Bet Builder money back special in a second. But let's start. At Anfield, this is 4 p.m. Sunday, 30 minutes earlier, so don't miss it. I know people will. They do this every time when they bring it forward 30 minutes. Liverpool 2.2 favourites to Manchester City, who are 5-2 shot in the exchange, or 3.5. The draw is 3.8. Both teams to score 148, very short currently on Matchbook. The Asian handicap line, see City get a quarter goal head start at 2.08. 3.5 is the total. Mark, I guess just set this game up for us. If you said this 4 weeks, 6 weeks ago, we would be here in terms of pricing and the build up to this game. It'd be hard to believe, but we are. Liverpool are top of the league so far clear, and City are on this really poor losing run / not winning run.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to sort of summarize it in the space of a sort of 30 seconds or so, but we could probably spend a good couple of hours sort of deconstructing this particular game. But fascinating, really. I have to start with Man City, really, don't we? Because I thought getting trounced at home to Tottenham was shocking enough, but chucking away a 3-0 lead at home to Feyenoord in the final 15 minutes to give Adrian his Champions League long shot probably tops it, actually. Struggling to kind of find the right word to describe it, but apart from shocking, just unbelievable sort of stuff. Hard to sort of put into perspective what's going on, how they've managed to do that, especially after last weekend. But obviously a load of records being broken in the process. The latest 3-goal lead in the Champions League to fail to win, to now concede multiple goals in 6 consecutive games for the first time in over 60 years for City. Haven't won now since the end of October when they beat Saints with that scratchy 1-0 win, conceding 17 goals in the following 6 games. There's a magnitude of reasons behind this: injuries, poor squad planning, possibly a bit of lethargy, and lack of motivation perhaps too. But what's just kind of stood out to me in the last couple of games is how shambolic City have been defensively, not just without the ball, but with the ball as well, which is kind of something we expect to see them in their prime, really. And it's hard to kind of it's hard to watch, really. Well, it's quite amusing to watch, but it's just quite unbelievable to kind of see in that sense. But the market has reacted, and like sometimes it can take kind of small sort of 6-game form bursts to take a while to kind of react in terms of the market, but it's reacted instantly, really. And obviously it helps that Liverpool are winning all their matches pretty much across home and abroad. But it's the first time now in 287 Premier League matches that Man City won't be favourites for a Football League match this weekend, which is quite astonishing, really. The last time City weren't favourites was away at Chelsea 7.5 years ago, April 2017. A game they lost, actually. They're firm outsiders now away at Anfield. Difficult to really disagree with that based on what we've seen over the last month or 6 weeks. But kind of rather than sort of toe that media narrative, I've always tried to almost look with a bit more of a balanced eye and try and figure out, City have moved almost so far now in the opposite direction. Is there a reason to get them on side? And I thought, well, against Brighton, they were brilliant in that first half before imploding. Even last weekend, I thought, could it have been a different game if Haaland scores one of those early chances against Spurs? But, we've kind of seen that script already. They have taken the lead at Brighton and still imploded. They did take the lead and had a 3-0 lead in midweek and still screwed it up. So, it's becoming very difficult to kind of get them on side in a trustworthy sense. And this is an enormous game, of course it is. If they lose this, they're 11 points behind, and you don't want to go over the top, but you would assume that the title races, it could be close to being dead and buried for City. But systematically things are already sort of falling down, pressing teams effectively trade opposition shot quality for sort of limiting the volume of shots teams take. And what I mean by that is they usually give up higher quality shots, but far fewer of them. And when the press works, they dominate. But when it doesn't, you're getting what we're seeing from Man City at the minute, which is just a complete monstrosity. And they go into a venue like Anfield where they almost never win. I think they've won once away at Anfield with supporters now in about 20 odd years or so. And they just look polar opposites in terms of stability, assurance and understanding and morale and confidence. And, Liverpool have dropped points just once since losing at home to Forest. They've scored at least twice in 7 of those 8 games. I just hope they attack this game with sort of the gusto that we've seen in previous years under Klopp. They have to see City as a wounded beast and sort of see the potential to win this match. And I know under Slot it's been a lot more controlled, a lot more composed and steady, but I actually think maybe they might require a bit more of the old sort of Klopp style here and get up, have a really intense start and put City under pressure and go from there. But we'll have to wait and see. Either way, Liverpool score in this game, absolutely. I think they possibly can score multiple goals based on what we've seen from City defensively. However, for all City's flaws, they are still creating chances. They are still creating plenty of opportunities. And when you've got a player like Haaland leading the line, Konate now with doubt, Conor Bradley a doubt, Trent back on the bench in midweek, but perhaps not match fit yet. There is potential, a chance for City to not just get on the score sheet, but score a couple of themselves. So I'm hopeful we'll get a good game, but I think it makes sense for me as a punter to kind of be back both teams to score, but also kind of parcel it alongside Liverpool double chance, which gets me a 1.8 shot, a 1.88 shot. So that's the 1-1, 2-1, 3-1, whatever it might be. Liverpool not to lose, but both teams to score. And I think that's a fair price considering.
Okay, that's Liverpool double chance, both teams to score 188. Adrian, a lot in that from Mark. Firstly, in terms of the favourite tags not being first time not being favourites in 7 years. Secondly, 17 goals conceded in the last 3 games. That's City price, right? And we've been commenting on that. It's 3.55. It's not just that they're not favourites; they're huge underdogs here in Anfield. What was your first reaction when you saw that price doing your prep for the show?
Yeah, was I surprised? Yeah, I guess I was surprised because it's obviously such a rarity. But based on current form, you shouldn't be surprised. Liverpool as well. They played very well against Real Madrid. I wondered if they would struggle in that game, because they didn't need to win it, but they won it and they won it well. It was a really polished, assured performance again from Liverpool. They are the real deal. I think we have to accept that. I think they're still flawed, Liverpool, but I think teams, there will be sort of bumps in the road for them. But based on what we've seen of late, you wouldn't expect it to come from City, who have been a mess, as Mark was outlining, really. And this isn't a great hunting ground for them. The exact stat is they've won one of their last 21 Premier League away games against Liverpool, drawn 7, lost 13. So it's a game they're not used to winning. Pep against Liverpool is remarkably bad. He's won just 6 of 22. That's the lowest win rate he's had against anyone. So, Liverpool are worthy favourites here. I think you have to say that. They're just not giving much away, and they're picking teams off with ruthless efficiency. I think efficient is probably the word to describe them at the moment. So I can't go against anything that Mark just said. I too am going to play it safe. I'm going to go with Liverpool double chance just because it is City, and of all the places to maybe rediscover their form, they might just shock everybody here. They are a great team, or they have been a great team. So, there'll be a fierce determination with the world watching. The eyes of the world will be watching this match. It would be kind of like Pep to maybe come up with something really, really clever. So just to cover ourselves for the draw, which I think is a possibility, I'm going to go Liverpool double chance and over 2.5 goals. That just extends the odds to 2.1. It obviously takes out the 1-0 really in terms of Mark's bets. Both meetings, Liverpool with Big Six teams this season have gone over 2.5, 2-2 at Arsenal, 2-1 against Chelsea. Liverpool have scored at least twice themselves in 10 of 12 league games, and City just blanked for the first time, obviously, against Spurs. So, if it goes to form, Liverpool will score a couple, and City will also get on the score sheet here. So, 2.1 Liverpool double chance and over 2.5.
Okay, as Adrian said, Liverpool double chance over 2.5 goals, 2.1. Mark's selection is the same. First bit, which is Liverpool double chance, have both teams to score. Combine all three of them in a bet builder. It will be our money back. Bet builder as a free bet up to £10. If it loses, the podcast treble is Liverpool double chance, both teams to score and over 2.5 goals, 2.4. Those asking, just place the bet on the bet builder on the Matchbook Betting Exchange, and you'll be credited with a £10 free bet on Monday morning. And it is recapped as well on the Insights article. That's insights.matchbook.com. Chelsea versus Aston Villa is the game beforehand, and a pretty big game as well. Chelsea 176 favourites, starting to be priced up like a top team here. Villa 4.8. The draw is 4.3. Both teams to score, yes. Currently set at 162. Villa will get a 3/4 goal head start in the Asian handicap line at 2.02. 3.5 is the total. So Adrian, I'll start with you on this one. I mean, it's just, we see every week that Chelsea are just becoming more and more solid, and that's reflected in the betting markets, I think.
Yeah, and it's fair. They've been excellent. They really have. Last weekend as well at Leicester, we just about got that one right with them to win and both teams to score. It was dominant. You know, as lame as Leicester were, you know, really timid. You know, they did control a lot of that game and could and probably should have scored more goals. Chelsea good against Arsenal. They weren't great at Old Trafford, but in general, the performance levels have been decent. So they're worthy favourites. Of course, they are at home to Aston Villa, who have sort of forgotten how to win, haven't they? They're sort of on this little winless streak at the moment. Decent enough point in the Champions League against Juventus. Struggled first half, came back strong, and maybe unlucky not to win it with a goal that was disallowed late on. So they'll take a bit of heart from that. You know, they've sort of dug deep, got themselves a result. Maybe they'll feel they're back on track ahead of the visit to Chelsea, which is a ground they like. The last couple of visits they've won there, which is always helpful, I think, for an away team. You know, going to somewhere where they've had success before, good memories. So I wouldn't write off Villa of causing an upset here. They're capable. They score away from home, don't they? Pretty much every game. I think it was only Anfield where they've blanked this season on the road. So no, I think they can go to Chelsea and score. Chelsea, by the way, have conceded in at least one in all 6 of their Premier League home games this season. It's a long old wait. It's the longest wait for a home clean sheet since the late 70s for Chelsea. So as good as they've been at home, they haven't been anywhere near as solid as they usually are. And actually, in terms of their points tally this season, I think only 41% of it has come at Stamford Bridge of their points tally. So they've actually done a little bit better on the road this season. So I think this is quite a hard game to call, even though I understand why Chelsea are favourites. I just think with Watkins and Duran and Rodgers and these guys, they've got some players back now, Villa, in defence and midfield. I think Villa have a chance, but I'm not bold enough to go with Villa here. So I'm just going to steer clear of the result and just say it's going to be both teams to score and under 4.5 goals. It comes in at 2.15. These two are both teams to score kings, really. 75% of Chelsea games and 75% of Villa games this season have seen both teams to score land. And under 4.5 is also a common theme. 10 of 12 for both clubs have seen under 4.5 come in as well. So the numbers are very much in our favour here. I can see a 1-1, a 2-1 either way, but I wouldn't see this as a 3-2 or any kind of thrashing. So yeah, for me, sit on the fence, just back both teams to score an under 4.5 at 2.15.
Okay, yeah, Adrian accepting Chelsea, very good, but can't quite bring himself there to decide it on the match result. So both teams to score and under 4.5 goals is 2.15. Mark, you are leaning a little bit towards Chelsea here, but similar question to you, I guess. Their price nowadays is reflected on the pitch, which has been very, very, I would say, impressive over the last few weeks.
Yeah, much more impressive than I thought they would be at this stage of the season, considering the turmoil they went through again during the summer, the players coming and going. You know, I think when Pochettino left, I think I said this, was it last week or maybe the previous week, but I thought Chelsea were there or thereabouts in terms of being amongst the top 4 or 5 teams in the Premier League. He'd got them to that point before he was sacked, and I think Maresca's kind of picked up where he's left off. And yeah, I've been encouraged by their performances. I think they've been pretty good for the most part. And I think they're warrantless price, to be fair, considering the players they have at their disposal, their recent performances, plus the fact that, my Aston Villa troll, who absolutely hates it when I discuss fatigue on this podcast against Aston Villa, he's going to love this. But obviously playing on Wednesday night, home to Juventus in the big game, it's going to be taxing, it's going to be draining mentally and physically. And then to go again at the weekend away at Chelsea, that's a tough schedule, really. And you can compare and contrast with Chelsea, who basically field the reserves in the Conference League. They'll be arriving fit and fresh and ready to go. That is a slight advantage. And he might think I'm talking absolute nonsense, and he's quick to tell me I am whenever I do. It's worth noting that Villa have only won once in 6 immediately after a midweek match so far this season. And small samples, of course they are, but we can sort of mirror their campaign so far with that of Newcastle's of last year, who punched above their weight to finish in the top 4, went into the Champions League and struggled to hit the same heights as they had done previously. We don't need to be defensive about it. It's just a common and obvious issue that needs to be addressed. They don't have the squad size, they don't have the experience, and therefore it's understandable that they might regress a little bit in the Premier League. And they are winless in 4 games. Like Adrian says, I still think they have plenty of punch about them going forward. I just think there's an issue to be addressed as well in midfield, where the structure, the balance doesn't seem quite right after a couple of key injuries. The way in which Palace opened them up last week was quite concerning, I thought, considering the Palace team were also missing a number of key players. But they're sort of leaving their central defenders badly exposed in open play, and that's kind of normally a good sign of imbalance in midfield. And it doesn't take much, 1 or 2 passes really to open them up. And 4 times now this season, they've conceded an XG tally of 1.8 or higher, and that just wasn't happening last season. So I think stylistically, this game could and should suit Chelsea. Villa's high line, plenty of pace and penetration in that Chelsea team to attack them. So I'm quite happy to back Chelsea double chance and basically follow the same selection I put up in the Liverpool game of Chelsea double chance and both teams to score. Not willing to back them to win the game just because of the reasons Adrian's outlined. Their Stamford Bridge form hasn't been fantastic, just 2 wins in 6. They have played 5 top half teams already in front of their own supporters, but the lack of clean sheets on both sides is also a concern. So I thought the obvious thing to do is to back both teams to score, which Adrian's doing, but also I'm happy to have Chelsea on side to avoid defeat. So that comes in about 1.8.
Okay, we had the podcast treble for the first game. Of the second game, I'm going to go with Chelsea double chance and both teams to score at 1.8. Adrian's one is recapped on insights.matchbook.com. And now let's move on to Adrian for this game, and we'll just take a look at the betting first. West Ham 7.6, Arsenal 149 favourites. The draw is 5.0. Both teams to score, yes, 192 at the Asian handicap line. West Ham are getting a 1.25 goal head start at the London Stadium, and 2.5 is the total. Adrian, there was worry from that Arsenal performance away at Newcastle a couple of weeks ago, real worry amongst Arsenal fans. Are they back, and have you seen enough with Odegaard back in the side and a few different things that Arteta has managed that and they've come out the other side of it?
Yeah, they look a different team now, Arsenal. They look like the vibrant Arsenal that we've seen for the last couple of seasons. Martin Odegaard's return is absolutely the catalyst for that. I think the last 2 performances have been pretty special. Certainly a really strong performance against Forest, but what I saw of the Gunners against Sporting was exceptional. It was probably the best I've seen Arsenal away from home in Europe since the Invincibles. Since maybe they went to Inter Milan and won. And even in that game, a lot of the goals came late on. This was a tough test. I know that Amorim isn't at Sporting anymore, but the players still are. And, they're having a remarkable season. And the level of their play in the game was by and large very good. Arsenal were just phenomenal with and without the ball. And barring a 15-minute wobble after half time, it was a near perfect performance. And the scoreline was a fair one. So they'll come into the game at West Ham absolutely flying. Obviously, they battered the Hammers in this fixture last year. So it might be tougher for them this time around. There'll be some memories jogged, and I'm sure that West Ham will be fired up for it. And actually, what I saw of West Ham on Monday, I worked on that game, was really impressive. Actually, it was probably their best, certainly the best performance away from home under Lopetegui. Didn't see it coming, but the midfield was much better. Soler came in there with Paquetá and Souček, and they were really good. Bowen was terrific. Antonio led the line great, and they defended excellently despite losing Todibo. So, yeah, all of a sudden, West Ham don't look quite as bad. But I'll level with you. I think if West Ham produce what they did at Newcastle, which isn't a gimme, that they can replicate that. If they do, and Arsenal are anywhere near what they produced in Sporting, this will still be a really comfortable away win because, you know, Arsenal playing at an exceptionally high level. You can't really back Arsenal. 1.49 shots. It's very skinny. So I was just looking at a different way of going about it. It could be tight. It's a London derby. West Ham in decent, you know, improved form. It could be another tonking because Arsenal's attack is beginning to click. I'm going to steer clear of that and back Arsenal to make a fast start, to get their noses in front and to stay there. So I'm going to go half-time, full-time, Arsenal. It takes the odds from 1.49 to 2.16. That's a lovely little jump for me. So basically, the only difference is that you need Arsenal to be winning at half-time as well as at the end of the game. They started in electric fashion against Forest and Sporting. I think Mikel Arteta will keep the same team. Basically, it's the best team Arsenal have really at the moment. I think, you know, the strongest 11 is there. I think he'll start them and look to win the game by early in the second half, and then give some of the guys a rest ahead of Manchester United in midweek. Arsenal have been a good first half team this season, only letting 3 first half goals. Concentration levels have been good, and West Ham haven't been great. They've let in 9 goals, West Ham, in the opening half hour of matches this season. That's the second highest in that time frame, behind Leicester City. So a lot of goals, 9 in the opening half an hour. So I think Arsenal can prey on that and get their noses in front and win the game. West Ham have trailed in 5 half times this season, 5 of 12. So yeah, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Arsenal will lead against them in this one. So yeah, for me, Arsenal 2.16. It feels like Mikel Arteta's side are back, and yeah, if they maintain the current levels, they will challenge on all fronts this season. Make no mistake.
That is convincing, I would say. Arsenal half-time, Arsenal full-time. Adrian, not just laying out the case, but backing it up with the numbers as well. Mark, I thought an interesting point, though, he did say is even if West Ham get to that ceiling of perhaps the Newcastle performance, if Arsenal get to theirs, or maybe just a little bit off it, they should have enough here to get a victory.
Yeah, I'd be a bit more bullish. I'd say if West Ham reach the standards they showed against Newcastle on Monday, Arsenal should still win with room to spare. Because, forgive me, Adrian, I didn't think they were that impressive against Newcastle.
Place to go, man. Come on.
It is.
And Adrian, hang on. Adrian's the West Ham hater on the podcast here, and Locatelli hater. And now all of a sudden it's flipped, and Adrian's defending them over.
No. I'll leave the floor to Mark. I'll let him have his say. But,
Carry on.
He's a hard taskmaster, this O'Haire.
Well, it's a great result, but I think the result can sometimes blind the balance of play. And I didn't think they were 2-0 good at St James's Park. They conceded 18 shots, 14 of those were inside the box. They were pretty clinical, pretty efficient with their own finishing. And look, the approach was good. It worked very, very well. But ultimately, I think Newcastle had enough chances to score at least once, probably twice themselves. I think a draw might have been a fairer reflection on that particular game. But yeah, it'll give them a right good lift coming into this game. But still, the defence is a concern for me. As I said, they conceded plenty of opportunities and shots on Monday night. They've now allowed an XG tally of 1.5 or more in 8 of their 12 matches this season. So the metrics suggest they've been quite fortunate to concede only 19 goals. If you look at their record against the top 8, it's 5 defeats from 5, conceding 3 goals or more in 4 of those 5. Last season, yes, under a different coach, but they conceded 11 goals in their 3 games against the top 3, including that 6-0 spanking by Arsenal. The last home game was a absolutely appalling 0-0 draw against Everton, where they offered absolutely nothing in forward areas, and they followed up with that win against Newcastle, which looks good on paper, but the XG tallies of West Ham in both those games, 0.8, 0.83, kind of highlighting their lack of threat in forward areas, really. And yeah, they've conceded 18 shots now in each of the last 5 Premier League matches. That's not going to be good enough against Arsenal if you continue it at that sort of rate. And but Kudus is still suspended too, which takes a little bit away from West Ham's ingenuity in forward areas. So yeah, Adrian's already sort of detailed how good Arsenal have been since Odegaard's return. I think it's worth mentioning too that Saka was given a good rest during the international break, which seems to have given him a new lease of life again. The two of them in tandem, the understanding that they bring to that Arsenal midfield and attack is just wonderful to watch. So, expecting Arsenal to be strong, but we'll package Arsenal to win alongside under 4.5 goals at 185. Only 5 of their away games since the start of last season in the Premier League have featured 5 goals or more. 3 of those were against relegated teams last term. So you look at West Ham, only twice under Lopetegui have they gone 5 goals or more at home to Ipswich, and then the red card influenced defeat away at Spurs. So a range of correct scores on side for Arsenal to win away at West Ham by including under 4.5 goals.
Yeah, on a side note, I can't believe Kudus is still suspended. I googled it and didn't realize it got upgraded to 5 games. I just missed that. That is absolutely amazing. That game feels a lifetime ago. Arsenal under 4.5 goals. Yeah, go on, Mark.
No, that was it. It does feel like it,
doesn't it?
Is he still suspended? Yeah, he is suspended again this week. So.
I can't believe that. I just presumed I missed another red card when he came back. Anyway, Arsenal under 4.5 goals. Mark selection 184. But I'm with Adrian on this. Arsenal halftime, Arsenal full time. The stats to back it up to at 2-1-6. A market we don't play in too often. So let's see, can we be successful here on the Match with Betting Exchange? Game 4 here. This is Wolves versus Bournemouth. We'll take a look at the betting that we have on matchbook.com. Wolves 2.9 underdogs to Bournemouth, who come to Molyneux as 254 favourites. The draw is 375. Both teams to score, yes, 158. The Asian handicap is draw no bet effectively with Bournemouth 186 favourites, and 2.5 is the total, although it is a low price, 168 on the over. This was Adrian's game of choice, Mark, but I know you have a confident selection, so I'm going to throw this to you first. You're expecting a lot of goals here.
I am, yeah. I think this will be a really good watch, a really good affair between 2 competitive teams, 2 teams who have been playing quite good, attractive football, attacking football, goal-scoring football this season. I think it will have plenty of edge, plenty of needle too. Both teams know how to commit plenty of fouls and collect cards. Just a word on Wolves, really. I'm just pleased that they gave Gary O'Neill the opportunity to try and turn things around. We've seen Leicester act after an international break and after a defeat to Chelsea, which made absolutely no sense. Whereas Wolves, stuck by Gary O'Neill, probably appreciated, understood that the schedule had been very, very difficult to start the season. You have to caveat that the performances weren't always up to scratch, but back-to-back wins now just give them a huge, huge lifeline. And he's not out of the woods by any stretch, but just been really impressed. I think their win away at Fulham was just as quite shocking as Spurs trouncing Man City. Actually, they were 5-1 underdogs in that game, but the way in which they played in that second half was outstanding, really. And Mateus Cunha is arguably one of the most informed players in the Premier League right now. Outstanding finishing, outstanding creative play. He's really flourishing. He's almost entirely responsible for Wolves outperforming their expected goals figure by quite a large margin this season. And I think Wolves are going very well in forward areas with him sort of knitting it all together. They've now scored in each of the last 11 Premier League games, the longest run in the Premier League right now. Scored at least twice in the last 4. Scored 20 and 12 overall this season, which is their best return in the top flight since 1970s. The trouble is they're still quite open defensively, and we even saw that with the team lineup they had away at Fulham, where basically no centre halves were available, and Mario Lemina had to step in at centre back. But I think their games so far this season have been great fun. 10 of the 12 have seen both teams scoring, and they're playing a Bournemouth team who will always have a go. They'll play with that intensity. They'll press high. They'll look to create openings, and they'll engage, and they'll see this as a winnable opportunities just as much as Wolves will too. So Bournemouth has seen BTTS in 8 of 12. The 2 teams together have managed just 1 clean sheet each this season, yet they've scored in 20 of their 24 combined games. So fully expect goals here, both teams to score. I'm going to package it with over 2.5 goals as well, because we're getting 1.83 on that particular outcome. Just makes sense to me. Both sides to score is quite short, but combining it with over 2.5 goals brings it right within range. And just looking forward to this. I could have kind of boosted it even further by adding cards to the equation too, but I'll keep it as simple as I can by over 2.5 goals in BTTS. Just quite looking forward to this one. Should be good fun.
Okay, yeah, that's one for the podcast and viewer listeners and not insights.matchbook.com. If you do want to maybe boost that price, you can add cards in and overs at that. But over 2.5 and both teams to score for Mark 183. I hadn't realised till Mark said it, Adrian, that 28 goals Wolves have conceded, which is 4 more than Southampton and 5 more than Ipswich, to put context into that. But obviously they had a difficult start. I pushed both you guys a few weeks ago on their difficult start. You both stood up for Gary O'Neill very confidently. you must be delighted to see them doing well. But they're playing some good stuff and they're going very well going forward. Are you expecting a big performance here?
Yeah, I like Wolves. I don't think they're anywhere near being in the bottom three in terms of quality. I think they just had a really hard run of fixtures and they'd forgotten how to win and various things have gone against them. Obviously, the defensive play needs to be better. They need to sharpen up. They certainly need to go into the market in January, Wolves, and bring in a couple of defenders, in my opinion, just to make things sure. I just think going forward, very, very good. I mean, I like in what Jürgen Strand-Larsen's brought to the table as a striker, but it has been the Mateus Cunha show. I've written a piece for the Premier League. I think it might be up at the moment, but if you want to read all about his stats, go there because he's up there with the most elite forwards in the Premier League, not just this season, but going back a year now. Over the last 12 months, his numbers compare with all of the biggest names in the Premier League. So he is a player, and a lot of his goals are spectacular, as we've seen. I think 3 from outside the box already this season. His XG is pretty low, but it hasn't stopped him scoring 7 goals. So he's a player to watch. I also think it will be a good game. But Bournemouth are positive, aren't they? They will attack, but their away record's not great. Not really. Just the one away win so far, and that was at Everton. If you remember, they were losing, and it was a stunning comeback right late on to steal all 3 points at Goodison Park. They haven't won any other games on the road yet, so I like Wolves double chance here. They're on fire. They're 4 unbeaten. They've scored 10 goals in 4 games. Wolves have scored in every home game this season. I really don't think Wolves will lose this game. I think that the worst they should get, really, based on the form book, is a draw. So I'm going to go Wolves double chance and over 1.5. Very cautious, really, given Mark's bullishness about over 2.5 goals and both teams to score, etc. You could, of course, if you wanted to pair it with over 2.5, just to stretch the odds out a little bit. But for the purposes of this pod, I'm going Wolves double chance, over 1.5 goals, 1.96.
Okay, yeah, and Mark made the case for goals, but that Bournemouth away form, I'm just going to lean towards Adrian again. Wolves, a double chance and over 1.5 goals. He might have picked out a good selection there. 196, but both the guys expecting a really good game. There, insights.matchbook.com will recap those bets and the bets to come. So a great way to check over the weekend the guys' podcast tips and, of course, how they're getting on. And all the old articles are also available there for anyone to catch up on. Any other bets time, Mark? Sheffield United versus Sunderland, both teams going well near the top of the table. You're expecting a cautious game here.
Just expecting defences to be on top, really. Both teams have built quite a solid promotion case so far this season, based around a rock-solid rear guard. And obviously this being a key game towards the top end of the table, second against fourth. Not expecting either team to sort of get away and sort of escalate into a shootout, really. And I mentioned those defences that, you look at the records so far this season. Sunderland, 10 clean sheets. Sheffield United, 11 clean sheets. So across their 34 combined games, that's 21 clean sheets and a 62% hit rate for clean sheets, which is some return, really. And the reason they've been quite successful is because of those formidable backlines, and therefore I think we'll have a tight encounter. And I'm just surprised we can get both teams to score no at sort of 187-ish, considering those returns. This match is taking place at Bramall Lane, a venue Sheffield United have now won 6 on the spin out without conceding in the Championship after beating Oxford in midweek quite comfortably. They are very much a sort of functional rather than flashy side. They're giving up an average of just 0.5 expected goals per game at home in front of their home supporters. And the only side to score at Bramall Lane so far this season is the wonderful Super Hoops. So I just got to get that in there before Adrian sort of bangs us back down again in a couple of minutes. But so they're playing a Sunderland side who started supremely, been hit by injuries and suspensions in recent weeks, but they're still unbeaten in 9. But the data does suggest they have been overachieving a little bit, and this is a big test for them. In those 9 unbeaten games, they've drawn 6. I mean, they've drawn 5 on the spin now and actually failed to score in 3 of those draws as well. We had 3 0-0s in that 5-game sequence recently, and this is a big test of their credentials. So, I'm going to back both teams to score no here, considering it's been a profitable angle in 23 of their combined 34 matches. That's 68%, including 7 of 8 at Bramall Lane yeah, the odds on offer suggest we're getting around about a 53% chance of at least one team failing to score, which doesn't quite add up. And my goals model suggests this is a really good value angle to take on Friday night.
Okay, both teams to score: Sheffield United versus Sunderland. Adrian, it's now time to take on Mark's QPR, so off you go.
Well,
The floor is
I
yours.
can't really batter them after they've just beaten Cardiff 2-0, to be honest. That was a really big win. Sila finally gets off and running. Yeah, he and 2 good goals. So well done to him. Well done to QPR, who actually haven't been that bad on the road. It's Loftus Road really where they're really struggling. Away from home, they've won a couple. They've drawn 3, lost 3. But for my money, they're still one of the weakest sides in the Championship. Goalkeepers bailed them out a little bit this season. The goal threat hasn't been great. And yeah, I just look at, this is more pro Watford than anti QPR. Watford are terrific at home. Still unbeaten under Tom Cleverley. He joined them in March, so it's a long time since they were beaten in front of their own fans. This season alone, their record at home in the Championship reads 1-7, drawn 1, lost none. Goal difference 13 scored, 4 against. And, they're up against a QPR side that did win at Cardiff, but before that had blanked in their previous 4 road trips. So I was surprised to see Watford as long as 1.93. I thought that they might be in the sort of 1.7 area, really. Front 3 is very decent. I just think that this should be a comfortable home win based on the teams Watford have already beaten on their own patch. They should be able to see off Queen's Park Rangers, but look, who knows what that win in South Wales would have done for Marty Cifuente's boys. 1.93.
Okay, Watford to beat QPR, and your second selection, Adrian, is?
It's another both teams to score. No, yeah. Look, no surprise. I mean, what I put last week. I mean, we tried that 4-fold. It didn't come in, but
started okay.
They were another. Several of them were low-scoring games, and the Championship in general has been pretty dull this season in terms of goal output. And Stoke Burnley just has sort of sleepiness written all over it, really. Burnley just don't really concede goals. They've only conceded 4 in 9 away games. They just keep grinding out the 0-0ers, the 1-0ers, 6 clean sheets for the Clarets in their last 8 games. Both teams to score, no, has landed in 13 of Burnley's 17 matches so far, which is remarkably high, really. So yeah, they're not high scorers, but equally they're very, very mean at the back. And they're up against a Stoke side that actually are in an okay place. I think they've only lost 1 of their last 8, but all of the games have been really low scoring. Lots of sort of binary numbers in their form book. They had a goalless draw in midweek at home to Preston. It's amazing how often you get 2 goalless draws in a row. It happens, I think, a freakish amount of times. Up and down the league. So it's just a pattern that I've sort of half followed. I'd like to know the numbers, but it often happens. And I can see it happening here. So I'm not going to back the 0-0. I'm going to cover myself with a 1-0 or 2-0 either way. But both teams to score no is at a nice price, given how low scoring the Championship is this season. It's another one at 1.93. Okay,
Adrian's 2 selections in this section: Watford to beat QPR and Stoke versus Burnley, both teams to score no. Both those bets individually are 1.93. On to our long shot time. And Mark, back to you here. A lot of punters I know listening or watching this would have never laid a bet in their life. They would always back a bet. Make the case why laying Rangers here away to St Johnstone is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, Rangers are involved in Europa League action on Thursday night away at Nice before taking the early kickoff slot on Sunday away at St Johnstone. So that immediately is quite a quick turnaround and makes them a little bit more vulnerable than perhaps they used to. But it's difficult to really pinpoint what's gone wrong with Rangers this season. But there's a lot of turmoil behind the scenes at boardroom level. Supporters are unhappy about the direction of the club, but plenty of poor recruitment has hampered them on the field as well. But things started so well under Philippe Clement. I think it was 1 defeat in their first 28 games or so under his tutorship. But you know, they'd overhauled Celtic in the title race at the back end of last season, and then it all just fell apart. And lack of Champions League football again this season, and a real malaise has kind of hit Ibrox, and they've been unable to kind of be their sort of dominant selves in the Scottish Premiership. And quite alarmingly, they've been absolutely appalling away from home. They've quite often managed to turn it on in Europe, and perhaps those performances have saved Clement his job, as well as that sort of upheaval off the field. But yeah, they've been really dour in terms of their domestic matters, and only last weekend they failed to beat Dundee United at Ibrox. I mean, that's pretty criminal for any Rangers team in any era, really. But the fact they did it without sort of direction, without the intensity, without the standards you expect of a Rangers side, quite alarming, really. And quite happy to oppose them here. And so I will lay them at 133, which is a very, very short price for a side who are not in good form at all and facing a very quick turnaround. So by laying them, we're basically saying they're not going to win. Basically backing St Johnstone, double chance here. You'll make money if Rangers fail to win. I've got them bigger than 1.5 to win this game, whereas the market has them around 133. They've won just 3 of their last 14 away days in the Europa League and the Scottish Premiership combined. If we look at the league alone, they've only won twice in the last 10 away games. But this season, they've scored just twice in 5 away league games. You look at them, 3-0 defeat at Celtic, lost 2-1 at Aberdeen. Okay, both teams are flying, fair enough. They only beat Dundee United 1-0. They drew 0-0 at Hearts and lost 1-0 at Kilmarnock. And even at Ibrox, 4 of their 6 league wins have arrived by just 1-goal margins. They're not blowing teams away at all. And I think the scheduling and that lack of form could just play into another quite shock result, really, in the Scottish Premiership. So St Johnstone, they're not great. They're in the bottom 4. But I think on a Sunday when the weather's, the wind's blowing up there in Perth, an early kick-off, they're fit, fresh and firing. It could happen. I've seen it happen a couple of times already this season, especially on Sundays. Rangers have had a bit of a hangover after European action. So, I oppose them as 1.33 shots.
Okay, you can lay that on the Batchbook Betting Exchange at 133. Lane Rangers to beat St Johnstone, effectively St Johnstone double chance, as Mark explained there. Now, Adrian, I love this long shot. You're off the back. You're confident. You've landed Feyenoord double chance. I've got more comments than usual about that. I think a lot of people picked that out when they obviously got the equaliser. They're straight on to us, which was lovely to see. You obviously not in your long shot, but you backed Wolves to get a result away to Fulham, and you mentioned a lot of stuff there. You've completely flipped in here now. You're going Fulham away to Spurs, and I can just see the case in my head. So make it for me again there. So
look, it's a fun one, isn't it? I kind of did it for banter, really, with the City game, and so it came in. I mean, the way it came in was just glorious, wasn't it? I hope those that were on it enjoyed it as much as I did. Look, Fulham were battered, weren't they, by Wolves, and that was a game that I sort of saw that happening, I guess, to a degree. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that they can flip it around against a Spurs team that went and beat Manchester City. It's just very Spursy, isn't it? And that is my thinking here. You've just gone and beaten the champions 4-0 in their own backyard. Can you go and beat Fulham at home? And I'm not sure that they will. They did, when they get it right, Spurs, they're excellent. We know that. And I do like Postecoglou, but there is a brittleness about them. You can't really trust them, particularly at the back where they've got injuries at the moment, very depleted in that department. And Ipswich went there and won recently, didn't they? So if Ipswich can do it, Fulham can do it for sure. They might be without Joachim Andersen, which is a bit of a blow for them at the back, but providing they can stay solid in that part of the field, they've certainly got the players that I think can run at Tottenham, can get in behind their high line and make things happen. A lot of exciting forward players that are all in pretty good form as well, actually, Fulham, despite obviously the bad reverse against Wolves. Fulham did push Man City pretty close, 3-2, if you remember. Quite unlucky to lose that game, and they do like to bloody the big boys' noses on occasion. They're no real respecters of reputation, Fulham, and I think that they'll go to the Spurs Stadium and go for it and look to hurt Tottenham and maybe go and outscore them. So look, it's a fun one. Spurs are obviously favourites for a reason, but it's just a part of me that thinks it'd be pretty Spursy if they got beat here. 4.8 on this long shot.
Okay, let's lock it in. Fulham away to Spurs, 4.8 the price there. Best bet time, Mark. I didn't pick your bet out for Wolves versus Bournemouth, but you're doubling down here. This is your best bet on the weekend card.
Yeah, the Premier League's been pretty goal heavy, not just this season, but last year too. And it's always nice to be able to get over 2.5 goals and both teams to score at a backable price. And it is 5-6, 1.83 for Wolves versus Bournemouth. As I said earlier, both teams have scored in 10 of Wolves' 12 games. And 8 of Bournemouth's 12 as well. Both teams have managed just 1 clean sheet each. Yeah, they've scored in 20 of their combined 24 games. I think Wolves have gone over in 9 of the last 10, Bournemouth in each of the last 3 games as well. So both will see this as a very winnable opportunity. Both have shown a real sort of penchant to get forward, create chances and score goals. I think both can be labelled defensively flawed at the minute too. So yeah, expected to be quite open, quite good fun and a very watchable affair. So overs and beated, yes, at Molineux.
Looking forward to it. Chelsea versus Villa for you, Adrian. Bet we covered earlier. Both teams are scoring under 4.5 goals. You expect Villa to get on the score sheet here and make it difficult for Chelsea.
Yeah, you didn't pick this one either. So
I
double down. It's all right.
God.
It's all right. Look, we're keeping our options open. We've got lots of different bets. Look, 75% of all Chelsea games and 75% of all Villa games this season have seen both teams score. Good going forward. Not guaranteed to keep clean sheets at the back. 10 of 12 for both teams. So that's 20 of 24 combined have gone under 4.5 goals as well. So that's my thinking here, with both teams to score and under 4.5 at 2.15. I just think that Villa have the punch to go there and be competitive and to score. But I think with Emery and his players not in the best of form, I also feel that they won't let the game get out of hand. Chelsea better away really than at home in terms of their results this season. So I'm steering clear of backing Chelsea here. Just going to go with both teams to score and under 4.5 goals. The numbers are strong and the price is okay, 2.15.
Let's lock it in. I just wanted more bets on the cards for people to stay interested there. And it shows how back and forth you guys are. There's nothing in it. It's great stuff. I just call it as I see it, like all good referees. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. We'll be back next week, and make sure you enjoy Liverpool versus Manchester City. It's going to be a fascinating game. If you're having a bet on the Match for Betting Exchange, make sure it enhances that enjoyment, but please do so responsibly. We will chat to you next week. Bye-bye.